Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Bison Video Blog. North Dakota State is into the FCS semifinals for a 13th time in 14 years as they get set for a game with South Dakota State, with the winner to go to Frisco, Texas. With Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. We've been down this road before, but this one feels a little different after the game earlier this season. The Bison won that one 13-9. The Jackrabbits come in. They have not lost a game since then. They're on a different trajectory right now. This is what you wanted. It's going to be a fabulous environment on Saturday.
It's what Jimmy Rogers wanted. He said that right after the game in the Fargo Dome, that we expect to be actually back
here.
And he was right. It's two teams. I feel like there's a sense of the maybe a little bit opposite directions right now, a little bit, not much. I mean, I know the Bison won 31-7 and they beat Abilene Christian, but I just don't think they were at their top-notch game that maybe we've seen during the regular season. There's an injury in the offensive line that may juggle some things. That's a concern. And, you know, on the flip side, the Jacks are rolling. They're rolling. South
Dakota State beat Incarnate Word 55-14, and they're stacking up the resume that the Bison did in the 2010s. This is now their fifth straight trip to the semifinal, go on top of two trips they made in 17 and 18. They become that program. And this is for the dynasty, Jeff. You and I talked about this. If you're a dynasty, you win 3 in a row. That's what's at stake for them on Saturday to try to get through the Bison.
Does that matter? Maybe it does.
I think it does. I think it does.
To be part of what quote-unquote dynasty. Now, if you look in the dictionary under dynasty, I don't think there's a word that says has to be 3 in a row. It might be the Oswego dictionary. But it certainly is one. There's no question about that. 3 in a row, especially in football. When you have so many players, it's a program, it's a big tournament, and it's a field, and all those things. But and you have they've done it with a great quarterback, great middle linebacker, good offensive line. They've done it the Bison way. They have built this team the way NDSU built its program, and its dynasty.
You look at what South Dakota State has on the line here in this game. Gronowski's going for the all-time FCS wins record in Fargo to break the record of an all-time Bison great in Easton Stick. They each have 49 career wins. That's what Gronowski can get if the Jackrabbits win this football game. Also, on the long list of resume for SDSU, they have a playoff win against the Bison. They have the national championship win against the Bison. They won the Dakota Marker in Fargo. The only thing they have that they don't have on their resume is a playoff win in Fargo. That's it.
Well,
and that's what's at stake for them. And you have to know they know that as well.
You know, you look at Mark Gronowski, and this guy has a chance to break the FCS record, and he still has another year of eligibility if he wanted to use it. So think about that and all the historical records and the career records. And there'll be no asterisk because he's done it in 4 years.
Correct.
And so, Easton Stick did it in 4 years, not 5.
No.
And so, but Gronowski has made known he's already committed to the East-West Shrine game. He's going to give pro ball a shot, obviously, hopes to get drafted, and he's moving on. But there's a sense of, and we're getting to the end of the COVID eligibility years, and what you're seeing, and I'm going to write about it this week, Dom, is all the historical career records are just getting mushed. They're getting mushed because of the extra year. And is that fair to all these players who, before the COVID years, put their name in 4 years of eligibility?
Oh, look, Christian Dudzik's a great example. Dudzik played in 61 games. I didn't think that ever was going to get shattered. And now it's been blown out of the water now because you got guys in their 70s that are playing
Braylon
games.
Henderson, I believe, is going to be 72 this week. I mean, and that'll be the NDSU record.
And that's not going to be. Is anybody going to play more games than that? I mean, think about. You hope there's never a situation where this comes about again, but I don't foresee that.
Unless the NCAA does something like, okay, you can play 5 years, which I'm not going to throw in.
Granted, and with the FCS playoffs and now the college football playoff, where they don't count against your eligibility. A guy could play 4 games and then play 4 games. That's
another
8.
That's another season if he does it 4 years in a row.
Right. Basically, if you do that, you could potentially have that line up for you. I want to go back off something off the top you said, where teams may be moving in opposite directions here. The Bison did win by 24, but again, both games have looked like, okay, they won, but it was missing something. That's how I felt over these 2 games.
Well, I felt like they mirrored sort of the fan apathy sort of feeling. Although the Dome made a difference. The 10,000 whatever fans that were there.
Both games they did.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely. They caused false starts on Abilene Christian and Mercer. But I feel like the Bison team, like the fan, how many times, like, where's Mercer? Where's Abilene Christian? Abilene, Texas? Oh, okay, maybe I've heard of that. Mercer? No clue where that's at. And so maybe that filtered down, and in your head as a player?
I think Tim Polisic admitted
maybe a little bit.
I think he admitted that at his press conference on Tuesday. And now, okay, here's the game. This is the one you wanted. Now it's in front of you. They played back in October, an absolute war. Bison won the game 13-9. It was a game marred with punts in the middle part of it. Neither team really got into a flow offensively until the Bison decided to let it rip on that last drive that ended up scoring the game-winning touchdown on it.
But
in terms of throwing the ball.
Yeah, and they did it, and they threw it. But now South Dakota State has their good safety, Tucker Large, back, and he didn't play in this game. But Cam Miller, I believe, and the way NDSU's rushing attack has been generally this season, it's been good, not great. I think Cam Miller's going to have to win this game with his arm. I really do.
Really? Okay.
I think he's going to have to throw for 3 touchdowns and do a 21 of 28 kind of game. I believe that's the best way forward for NDSU, and especially Marty Brown wasn't really as effective as he was.
And he's not 100% apparently, according to what Polisic told us after the game on Saturday night. That to me, I think he wins it with his legs. This game, it was right after he got hurt against UND. It was 2 weeks after he hurt his ankle. And we saw on Saturday, they let Cam start running it more. And I say let, maybe it was all decisions by Cam. I think he goes and starts using his legs like we saw earlier this season. I think that comes out on Saturday.
I think, well, why not?
Right? What are you saving for now?
There's no saving now. Right? And these are the 4 heavyweights in FCS football, with UC Davis maybe a 1B in that regard. I just feel like this is going to be what we're going to see for the ensuing next 10 years or however long things shake out in FCS football, and nobody else goes FBS like NDSU.
So right now the Jacks are a 2.5-point favorite. What would you put?
I feel like it's more than that for whatever reason.
Yeah. I put the under over at this. How many points do you think in a game like this? Maybe 35? I mean, that's like a 17-13 football game. I would take the under on that if it's 35.
First team to 20 wins this game. Let's just go with that.
Well, the old adage, Jeff Culhane, shout out to him with the stats, whoever got 200 yards rushing won the football game. That changed in the game in October.
I just
the Jacks got that and didn't win.
Yeah, I don't see NDSU getting 200 yards rushing in this game. I just the way things have gone.
Do you think there's
no breakaway threat really?
Yeah.
Barica and Marty are good running backs.
Yes.
I mean, between the tackles and they're tough runners, but generally they just haven't shown that home run threat. And SDSU does have that with Amar Johnson.
Yes. Do you believe the offensive line is the same lineup on Saturday? Do you think they change that up?
Certainly, you got to look at it.
Yeah.
Certainly, you have to look at it. Do you bring Bo Johnson into the mix, the young right tackle, and move Mason Miller? That'll be a huge. And if I were Tim Polisic, I wouldn't reveal my cards.
No, you're not going to do that. But I think, to your point, all options got to be on the table.
Yeah,
Again, what are you saving it for? Like if this is the best combination we have, then this is what we got to roll with. If it's even including a redshirt freshman at the right tackle spot.
Boy, I saw Mercer on Saturday really plug some gaps.
They did.
And I didn't see a surge really on the Bison offensive line like you're accustomed to in postseason, like you're accustomed to in the regular season. And so I would certainly be, all things are on the table. I think he admitted that.
Yes,
Tim did after the game too.
I think also, you mentioned the crowd. That's not going to bother the Jacks. They've been in this scenario before. Do you think so? In my opinion, I don't believe that'll be a factor on Saturday.
I think it'll be a factor. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a sold-out stadium. Dom.
But they've been there, done that.
I understand.
I don't think.
But you still have to hear the quarterback sometimes.
It did get them, I would say, in the first half of the game in 22. They had new tackle John O'Brien, who came in, transferred from Bowling Green, and he had like 4 false starts, remember, in the first half of that. But then the Jacks figured it out, and they rolled the Bison in the second half of that game. I'll never forget. I mean, that was the one game NDSU was playing as well as they had in the last 3 years against the Jacks. It's 21-7, and obviously everyone remembers the Cam Miller throw to Braylon Henderson.
18,000 people aren't going to affect an offense.
Come on. No, they've been there and done it. Okay. It didn't bother them in October. They didn't have any false starts there. If anything, the Bison defense affected Gronowski more than anything. That was the worst we had seen Gronowski play in the 4 times that he's played in DSU. He was airmailing balls into the stands in that game in October.
We just flat out disagree there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
it's all right with that.
All right.
But the Bison are missing a couple parts that did play in that game. Sam Young played in that game. Luke Wirtz played in that game.
Right.
Neither one may play in this game on Saturday. We know Young's not playing.
Well, okay, now it comes down to the Bison defensive line then, too, because
Yep.
that's going to have to be, I think, the turning point and the difference in this game is.
And they were good in that game.
Yeah, and they were that good game. And we've seen Kelton McCaslin now come back into the playoffs, and he was
2 games in a row now.
Yep, had a sack last week and has showed his presence. So yeah, you lose Young, but you gain McCaslin. You know, it's not. You want Young back there.
Yes, you absolutely want that because the back end of the Bison defense, I think, is the most susceptible, and the Jackrabbits know that.
It's youngest, yes.
And that's where Griffin Wilde, who was not an impact guy on the first team, could make a huge impact this time around.
And Griffin Wilde has made a huge impact in postseason, and I think you're going to see him get targeted more earlier in the game this time around.
I agree because
he should be.
He wasn't in the flow of the game.
No.
It felt like Goring was the other wide receiver, Graham Goring, but it felt like they didn't get the ball to Wilde as much as I thought they would. It's everything you want. You mentioned it. You want a trip to go to Frisco.
And the fans have said as much.
Yep. But I will say this. This is the penance you pay for what happened the last 4 minutes in Vermilion. If the Bison win that game, they're not playing the Jackrabbits till Frisco. They have somebody else they're playing in this round. This is what happens because they couldn't close that game out at South Dakota.
Well, and that was a meltdown.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
And really, you can make the case the 2 playoff games in the regular season haven't been their best.
No, their last 3 games is not.
The last 4 minutes of the South Dakota game and the 2 playoff games have been good, but nothing that says, wow, that's going to you're going to be hoisting the or the trophy in Frisco.
The last time we saw them play at full burn was that game against Missouri State. They came out and blew the doors off Missouri State. That game was over by 12 minutes into the second quarter. It's not been. It was a slow start. Obviously, we know what happened at the end of the game in Vermilion. Obviously, a slow start against Abilene. Quick start against Mercer, and then the rest was a slog. It's not been since Mo State that they played full bore.
And you got to remember that Missouri State game. Mo State came in with a lot to play for.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was their season. They're ineligible for the playoffs because they're going FBS, and they still had a chance to win a regular season title. There was a lot to play for Missouri State, and you never would have known that.
No, Bison took care of business in that, and is a fast start critical in this game? Like I asked you on the hot mic, like if you win the toss, if you're the Bison, do you take it or you defer?
Well, with all things, if they're relatively close at halftime, no, this game is going to be won, I believe, in the first 5-6 minutes of the third quarter.
Okay.
See who's establishing what.
It's going to be a fabulous game. We look forward to it. We're going to get you started. We are your pregame show. We always are, but we literally are on Saturday. Bison Game Day starts at 10 a.m. Yeah. We're in negotiations on where we're going to be for the game. It looks like about a temperature of 10 degrees on Saturday. So, and then, of course, the game is at 11 a.m. on WDAY. We can't wait for that with Montana State and South Dakota right after that at 2:30. It's going to be a great day of football, and we can't wait to start it with you 10 o'clock on Bison Game Day. Going to be a big week of coverage. Jeff will have you all set at Inforum.com. We'll have you ready as well on WDAY. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Tom Izzo. That's this week's Bison Video Blog.